Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another video. So yeah, I wanted to get into a Q&A video here. First of all, thank you guys so much for all of your questions. If you do want to take part in these Q&As, then definitely go follow the Discord. The link for it is in the description of this video. I always do Q&As usually every single Wednesday. And so yeah, I mean, we have one more Q&A coming out next week on Wednesday, and obviously one more before The Ones Who Live airs, which is kind of insane. It's Friday, you know, the weekend is here, and next weekend is the premiere of The Walking Dead: The Ones Who Live. The show is finally going to be here in just 9 days from now, which I really can't believe. So obviously, if you want to get more Walking Dead content like this in terms of reviews and trailer breakdowns and all of that, then definitely make sure to be a subscriber. There's going to be so much to talk about with this show. But let's get into the first question here. Q&A. Since there is a possibility of a second season of The Ones Who Live, in your opinion, how will the story play out? I mean, first of all, yes, the possibility of a season 2 seems very, very likely at this point. Like, there's not a lot of evidence supporting the idea that this is only one season. Like, that's the thing. If you just kind of look at it, you know, the other way, there's not a lot of proof out there that it's only going to be one season, because we've just been learning more and more things lately that it seems like there's a possibility of another season, but obviously they're not going to officially announce anything or say anything right away, because they're like, well, you have to watch the show, right? You know, judging based off of what they've been saying about the story here for season 1, I think that the story is really going to focus on Rick and Michonne. There's going to be some CRM stuff. We got a lot of early reviews this week that kind of teased that, you know, the CRM stuff, there are still questions about the CRM and a lot of things. And yes, they do get into things, but after 3 or 4 episodes, you kind of feel like, no, this is just the beginning of everything. There's no way they're wrapping this up in 2 episodes. And so I think that was sort of the intention here. Honestly, I kind of feel like that was the intention of all of this, was that they were going to do one season here, and this one would focus on Rick and Michonne. It was going to really prioritize them reuniting, finding each other after like, what, 10 years or however long it's been. I think it's been about 10 years, and just what it's like for them, but also obviously getting into some of the CRM stuff. So I think by the end of the season, it's going to end in a way that definitely sets up a season 2 and all of that. And there's going to be more of a focus on the CRM, I think, by the end. But yeah, I think season 2 will just focus more on that. I think it's going to be really the main focus of everything. And again, it's kind of hard to say because we don't know, you know, just certain details about the story. Like, we don't know how Michonne feels about the CRM. I mean, we could obviously guess, right? But we don't know. Like, maybe Michonne's like, you know what, if we can like fix the leadership here, this would be a really amazing place for us to be able to stay, right? Or maybe Rick thinks that, but Michonne doesn't. We also don't know where the characters are going to be by the end, what's exactly happening with a lot of characters. So there's a lot of things like that once we watch the final episode here of season 1, we're going to know exactly what a season 2 could look like. But I do think that, yeah, a season 2 for sure will focus more on the CRM. Q&A, do you think that The Ones Who Live will conclude Rick and Michonne's story or end on a cliffhanger? I think it's going to end on a cliffhanger. Every episode seems to end on a cliffhanger. They said that, or at least a lot of the early reviews, I believe, said that the first 4 episodes, pretty much all of them end on a cliffhanger, which, like, again, for me, is totally fine if you're giving us stuff throughout the episode that's like satisfying enough to watch, right? Like, that was always my issue with like the Negan cliffhanger, right? At the end of season 6, like the whole build to the season was the reveal of Negan and who was going to die in that moment there. Like, that was the payoff for the entire season there, you know? And so to leave the season on a cliffhanger there, that's what I had an issue with. And same with Carl's death. They revealed it, and then it was a cliffhanger, and we had to wait till, you know, a couple months or whatever to see how Carl died, kind of thing. Like, little things like that is the stuff that I don't like. And that's the stuff that Gimple does a lot. Gimple does cliffhangers a lot. And so I haven't seen anyone complain about anything so far in terms of that, like in terms of the use of the actual cliffhangers. So I'm guessing that, you know, that the episodes are actually like good to watch. There's a lot in each episode. There's so much going on that when it ends on a cliffhanger, it's just something extra, right? It's something extra that sort of hypes up the next episode. But to answer your question, I think that this season is going to end on a big cliffhanger. Q&A, with all the new information from The Walking Dead and looks at the show, how do you think the reunion will go down between Rick and Michonne? I've talked about this a bit before. I do think it's probably just going to be them running into each other. Literally just like they're doing whatever, like they're just kind of like, you know, dealing with their own stuff, like CRM stuff or whatever. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they just run into each other. And it's just like, whoa, wait, what? Kind of thing. I think it's going to be more of a shocking moment like that. Q&A, what would you think if Carl lived in the main show, but Rick still blew up the bridge and got taken away on the helicopter? And how would you feel if he went with Daryl to France in The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon? So if Carl lived and he went with Daryl to France, is what you're saying. I mean, I would obviously love that, because if there's a way to have Carl around in any way, I would want that, right? I don't know if he was still around. I don't know if I would make him go to France, though. I think I would write it where he stayed in Alexandria. I would still want the Rick and Michonne show to be about Rick and Michonne. And then, you know, maybe if Morgan shows up for a season 2 and all that, I would still want the current plan. But I think for Carl, I would have just wanted him to take the lead for the rest of season 9, 10, and 11, because I feel like Carl can actually be a really cool character, a really cool lead, you know, if they were to do like a next like Walking Dead 2.0 type of show. Like, I think that is more of where his story should be. And then obviously he could show up in The Ones Who Live, like season 3 or something like that, if he was still alive, obviously. Q&A, in what episode do you see Michonne revealing to Rick that he has a son? Well, episode 4. I think that's going to be the episode where they get into a lot. I've seen some reviews say that it's like one setting kind of thing, the whole episode. So I'm guessing they're just going to be in a room talking the entire episode, or something like that. Like, I think that for the most part, that's pretty much going to be that episode, and it's going to be a lot of emotions. And obviously it's not going to be a lot of like, oh, I miss you, this and that. There might be fights. Like, honestly, there might be arguments about a bunch of stuff. And I would really like that if they actually got into that, just because obviously that's just showing, like, you know, just that they care and this and that. And it just makes the episode this whole, like, you're really focusing on the performances and the story and just the time lost and everything that they're talking about, just everything in that moment. You're going to catch up with those characters just entirely there, right? So I hope we get something like that. I think that'd be really incredible. But yeah, I think it's going to be in episode 4. I think that's going to be like honestly, I do think that's going to be the episode. From the interview from comicbook.com, it seems like Pearl and Rick will have a very close relationship in the show. Could that mean something more? No, I don't think that's going to be anything like that. Like, I think Pearl and Rick are just friends that really, you know, like, they actually got very close. And I think that, yeah, they're just going to be like best friends. But it does seem like, based off of a lot of the interviews, though, and the early reviews, that Pearl Thorne is going to believe a lot more in the CRM. So I think that, you know, I've had these predictions for a little bit here that maybe Pearl Thorne would be more of a, I never wanted to say villain, because villain's not the right word, but she just disagrees with Rick and she's starting to believe a lot more in the CRM, and obviously Rick doesn't. So I think that in that sense, they're going to be kind of torn apart in that way. And then Pearl ends up being a villain, and I think that that's where we can get into some really crazy stuff, right? Q&A, could Nat be undercover for Jadis? Like, Nat will bring Michonne to Jadis for her to kill Michonne. Weird theory, but you never know. That would be honestly crazy. If that actually did happen, I would be so shocked, because I would not see that coming at all. And maybe that makes more sense as to why Michonne eventually, you know, found, I guess, the CRM and all of that. But that would be a lot. Like, I know that there is always like spy theories and stuff like that every season. That it seems to be like with every show, there's always a character that is like, immediately people are like, oh, is this person a spy for this person, kind of thing. And, you know, actually a couple times I feel like that was right, because I know there was something with Jadis, though I don't remember what it was. And then I remember the whole Stephanie thing ended up somewhat being right, because there was a connection with Lance, and that's sort of what everyone thought, right? And then there was also, I mean, yeah, I don't really remember anyone else, but like, if that does happen, I would be so shocked. I would actually be really shocked, because Nat does not seem like a villain in any way at all. I remember we got like one image or whatever, one teaser thing of him, and I thought maybe in that moment that, oh, he knew more about the CRM, this and that, just because the way he was kind of looking at the lighter and stuff, I was like, oh, he knows more. But since then, you know, based off of the trailers and all the footage we have of Nat, I'm just like, no, I think he's probably going to be with Michonne. He's going to be trying to help her out and all of that. But I will say, though, like, that can change. Like, once we watch the episodes, you know, there might be actual scenes in there where we're like, oh, wait, that's a little different, right? So we'll have to wait and see. Q&A, do you think that scene of the Civic Republic military soldiers getting blown up was from Nat? I have heard that he's supposed to be, at least the early reviews were mentioning that he's like really good with like pyrotechnics and stuff like that. So I could see that being a possibility. Like, that would be really crazy, but I could totally see that. Like, there's CRM soldiers around, and yeah, I could totally see that being a possibility. Q&A, after watching the comicbook.com interview, I got the idea that Rick gets in trouble in the CRM and is punished by having his hand cut off. My theory is that at the same time, Michonne gets captured and has to prove some loyalty to the CRM. and she's forced to cut Rick's hand off unknowingly. Then when they actually reunite, she sees he's missing his hand and figures out it was her that cut his hand off. That would be, like, honestly, that's a crazy theory. I don't think that's going to be what it is, just because I've heard from people, well, not, I haven't heard anything, but like interviews and like, you know, just seeing stuff online, Andrew Lincoln talking about a lot of that. Like, it seems like that moment where he does lose his hand, it seems to happen in the very beginning of the show. And so we would see Michonne cutting someone's hand off, and like the reveal to the audience would happen immediately. Like, we would know right away. And I just don't think, you know, storytelling wise, it makes a lot of sense to do that. That would be a crazy thing if it did happen, but I think because they're doing it right away in the beginning of the show, it's not really, I don't think they're doing it to be a reveal. It's just going to be sort of a part of Rick's story. Q&A, back in the Negan lineup, if Negan made Rick choose, who do you think he would kill? Oh man, if Rick had to choose, I don't even know. I don't think he would choose anybody. Like, if anything, he would probably just choose himself in that moment, because like he couldn't do that. Like, there is no way, he would never ever do that. That would also just be a crazy, like, oh, that would be so crushing to see someone like that. Like, that would be so much. Like, people had a big issue with the deaths in general in that episode. I feel like for Rick to have to make that decision as well, like, that would just add a whole other thing, and then you'd probably lose another 1 million or 2 viewers. Like, yeah, I don't know. I think that would be crazy. Q&A, going back to the season 7 finale, Jadis and Negan negotiate a number of how many people she can take. He says people are a resource. In your opinion, what do you think Negan thought she was doing with the ones she would get? I mean, I don't even know if he really thought anything in that moment. I feel like for Negan, like, just during that time, and even now, like, I don't think he cares too much about what other people are doing with you know, their own resources or whatever they have. I feel like he more cares about just like what he has in that moment and like what he's doing, kind of thing. So I might have to go back and watch that episode, because it's actually been a while since I've watched the season 7 finale. Q&A, do you think that the CRM took over a ship with nuclear bombs from fear? I don't think they would introduce such a powerful weapon for just one enemy in a mediocre series. What do you think about it? Greetings from Poland. Well, thank you so much for the question. Well, I think that yeah, they're gonna know about that. Something like that going off. I think they were around Texas. I can't remember exactly where they were. They're going to know about it. The CRM is going to be all over it for sure. Yeah, in terms of how much they're really going to get into that and how much that will affect the story, we'll have to wait and see. They're for sure getting into all of the, you know, like Atlanta and LA and New York, and, you know, like, they're going to be getting into a lot of those stories there with the CRM. So I could see them, you know, if they want to, getting into some of that stuff. Like, that's where I think a season 2 is really going to get into really crazy reveals. There is like all of the small details like that. I think that's where, if Morgan shows up at the very end of this first season here, maybe you know, that storyline with Teddy and all of that actually plays a role, you know, and there's some sort of connection there with the CRM. I think that would be really cool. Q&A, would you rather have what we have right now, or Carl never died but Rick actually dies on the bridge? Okay, so that's crazy. So basically, would I rather have Rick or Carl alive to this day? I would have to say I would rather have Rick alive, and basically what we have right now. If I have to choose between the two characters, I would have to say that. It's hard, because like, Rick dying back then, you know, it would mean, like, it would symbolize a lot basically. And then Carl being around, like, you know, in terms of the legacy of the Grimes family and the Walking Dead, you know, it would mean a lot more. But I just love seeing Andrew Lincoln as Rick Grimes. I just love having him back in the story and still being around. And like, I really feel like a lot of people like to mention, you know, season 4 and 5 Rick, because people view that Rick Grimes as like the prime Rick Grimes, where he was just insane, right? We'll have to wait and see. You know, like, he could totally take it to a whole new level here in this series. So Q&A, do you think there's a possibility of getting a similar reunion like when Rick reunited with Carl and Lori in season 1? Maybe the same music in the background, or similar setting. For example, maybe Rick meets Michonne's new friends before Michonne and them, and then they find, oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, you know what? That would be really cool if they could do it in that way, where Rick is just with the CRM, and maybe he, you know, he's talking to like another group, and maybe he's ordered by the CRM to like do this and that. So he's there, he's talking to this new group, and it's Michonne's group, and he's, you know, he doesn't even know, but he's talking to Nat and I guess the other characters. Then, you know, all of a sudden, as he's walking with the group and all of that, he sees Michonne, right? That would be really incredible. I think that that's a little too, I don't want to say too predictable, because obviously it is very, very predictable, but I think that people wouldn't really want that, because I think that they want something different. And judging by what Andrew Lincoln and Denai Guerrero were saying in that comicbook.com interview, it's going to be something different, and it's going to be shocking and surprising, apparently. So I think it's going to be like, that's why, to me, honestly, I've been really thinking it's going to be just like, not like a fight scene, but just something where Rick is a CRM soldier, he's standing by a door, or he's standing somewhere, and obviously he has like the whole suit on, and he's looking another way, so obviously he doesn't know where Michonne is, because obviously if he sees Michonne like running at him, he's gonna like take his helmet off and be like, oh, it's Rick, kind of thing, right? It's me, right? And so he would have to not be looking at Michonne, and then Michonne, obviously, like, she's not gonna recognize him because he's gonna have the whole CRM outfit on. And so I'm just picturing, if they're in that apartment or whatever building that they have there, if it's a hospital or whatever it is, maybe Michonne sort of, you know, she's sneaking around, and then she like knocks out the CRM soldier or knocks him on the ground. And then that is sort of the reveal right there. And then Rick is just like it's Rick, right? They see each other almost like in like a fight like that. Like, that's the only thing I can really think of. Besides that, it's, I mean, what? They just like open the door. Someone opens the door and then they just see each other. I don't know what else it's going to be honest. I really don't know what else it could be. I'm trying to think of like how they could do it, but it's just, it is so hard to say. But obviously we're going to find out very soon, right? So definitely thank you so much for all of your questions. I really enjoyed doing this Q&A. Make sure to be a subscriber if you do want to get all my walk into content like this, and I'll see you guys in the next one.